The first time I thought I was going to die, it wasn't in a hospital room. It was in a parking garage in downtown Chicago, where the wind funneled between concrete pillars like a blade. I had just finished a 12-hour shift at Mercy General, my scrubs still smelling like antiseptic and sweat, my hair pinned up in a tired knot that tugged at my scalp. My paycheck was 2 days away. My bank app showed $11 and some change. I remember because I stared at it in the elevator, like if I stared hard enough it would turn into more. On the ground level, the garage doors rattled. Snow skittered along the floor like handfuls of salt thrown by an angry hand. I hugged my coat tighter and walked toward my beat-up Honda, key between my fingers the way women learn to do without anyone needing to teach us. That's when I saw him. A man folded into the darkest corner near the exit ramp, half hidden behind a broken shopping cart and a flattened cardboard box. He was shaking so hard his shoulders bounced. His beard was iced over in spots, and his eyes weren't begging. They were watching, like an animal deciding whether to run or bite. I told myself, keep walking, you're alone, it's late, you're tired, but my feet slowed anyway. He coughed, a wet ripping sound, and his hand slid out from his coat sleeve. His fingers were purple at the tips. "Ma'am," he said, voice rough as gravel. "Please, I need something warm." Anything. I glanced around. The garage was mostly empty. A distant engine revved somewhere above, then faded. My pulse thudded in my ears. "I don't have much," I said, and my voice came out thin. He tried to stand. His knees buckled. The cardboard scraped. He caught himself on the shopping cart and winced like something inside him was broken. "I'm not trying to scare you," he said quickly. "I'm not. I can't feel my feet." I should have walked away. I had rent, I had groceries. I had my own fear packed neatly into my ribs. But then he looked up into the fluorescent wash, and I saw bruising along his cheekbone, the kind that came from a fist, not a fall. I saw the way his eyes kept darting toward the garage entrance like he expected someone to come back for him. I took a careful step closer. "Are you hurt?" He let out a humorless breath that puffed white. "Hurt's a big word. I'm cold, and I got nowhere." I swallowed. My hands were trembling now too, not from the weather, from the decision. Across the street, a little corner market still had its lights on, the kind with a bell on the door and faded lottery signs. I could buy him coffee, a sandwich, maybe a cheap pair of gloves. My mind did the math fast, like a reflex. $11, gaslight blinking, 2 days to payday. "Stay here," I said before I could talk myself out of it. "Don't move, okay?" His eyes narrowed, suspicious. "Why?" "Because I'm coming back," I told him. "And if you follow me, I'll freak out and I'll leave. So just stay." For a second, he looked like he didn't believe kindness was real, like it had always been a trick with him. Then he gave the smallest nod. "Okay." I hurried across the street, the wind biting through my coat. Inside the market, the heat hit my face and made my eyes sting. I grabbed a large coffee, the hottest they had, 2 breakfast burritos because they were on the rack by the register, a pack of hand warmers. The cashier, a middle-aged guy with tired eyes, watched me pile it up. "You feeding somebody out there?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, and my throat tightened. "He's freezing." He rang it up. I held my breath as the total flashed. $10.06. My card wouldn't swipe if it was over what I had. I knew it. I could feel the humiliation waiting like a trap. I dug in my pocket and found 4 quarters, a wrinkled dollar, and a handful of pennies. My hands shook as I counted. The cashier didn't rush me. "You're short," he said gently when I came up a few cents shy. I froze, cheeks burning. He reached into the little dish by the register, the one filled with stray coins, and dropped 2 pennies onto my pile. "Now you're not," he said. I blinked hard. "Thank you." Back outside, the wind slapped the breath out of me. I clutched the bag to my chest and jogged into the garage. The corner was empty. The cardboard was still there, the shopping cart too. But the man was gone, and then behind me I heard footsteps. Fast, uneven, coming closer. I spun around so hard my shoulder twinged, the bag of food swinging like a weapon in my fist. He wasn't running at me, he was running past me. The homeless man barreled toward the stairwell, limping hard, one hand pressed to his side. His eyes were wide, terrified, locked on something behind me. "Move," he rasped. "Move, girl, please." The word girl hit wrong, not mean, just familiar in a way that made my skin prickle. I backed up without thinking, and then I saw why. 2 men stepped into the garage entrance, silhouettes at first, then faces in the fluorescent light. Both wore dark hoodies. One had a long, pale scar along his neck. The other carried something heavy in his right hand, hidden low by his thigh. My stomach dropped. Scarneck scanned the rows of cars like he owned the air. His gaze snapped to me, then to the bag in my hands. "You seen a man come through here?" he asked. My mouth went dry. I tried to speak and nothing came out. The second man shifted, impatient. Metal glinted for a split second. Not a gun, a tire iron. I forced air into my lungs. "No," I said, and my voice cracked. "I just got off work." Scarneck took a step closer. He smelled like cigarettes and cold rain. "You sure?" I nodded too fast. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. This was the moment you read about, the moment you swear you'll handle bravely until it's your moment. From the stairwell came a muffled thump. Then silence. Scarneck tilted his head. "What you got there?" "Food," I said, for myself." His eyes flicked to my Mercy General badge hanging from my coat zipper. "Nurse," he murmured like it was a joke. "Always trying to save somebody." The other man laughed, low and ugly. I did the only thing my exhausted brain could do. I lifted the bag slightly and said, "It's just coffee and burritos. You want it, take it. I just need to go home." They stared at me like they were deciding whether I was worth the trouble. Then from the stairwell, the homeless man's voice cut through, hoarse and angry. "Hey!" All three of us turned. He stood halfway up the stairs, one hand gripping the rail, the other holding my coffee like a tiny torch. His body shook, but his eyes had changed. They weren't scared anymore. They were furious. "Leave her alone," he shouted and coughed hard after. Scarneck's face tightened. "There you are." The tire iron man started toward the stairs. "No," I blurted, stepping forward without permission from my fear. "Stop. He's sick. He needs help." Scarneck looked at me like I was stupid. "Lady, you got no idea what he needs." The homeless man stumbled down a few steps, forcing himself between me and them. Up close, I could see how badly he was doing. His lips were cracked, his knuckles split, but he squared his shoulders anyway like he'd rather break than bend. "Go," he said to me, not taking his eyes off them. "Get in your car, lock it. I can't just—" "Go." He snapped, and there was something in his voice that made my chest ache. Not bossy, protective, like he'd been doing that for a long time. I moved. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I fumbled my keys, hit the unlock button, and slid into my Honda. The doors locked with a hollow clunk that sounded too small against what was happening. Through the windshield, I watched Scarneck approach him. "You stole from the wrong people," Scarneck said. The homeless man's jaw worked like he was chewing pain. "I didn't steal," I took back. Tire Iron Man lifted his arm. I didn't think. I honked the horn long and blaring, the sound exploding inside the garage. I leaned on it with both hands, my heart slamming, my breath coming in sharp, panicked pulls. Heads appeared on the upper levels. A car alarm chirped. Somewhere a security gate beeped. Scarneck swore. Tire Iron Man hesitated, eyes flicking around. The homeless man seized that half-second. He lunged, shoved Tire Iron Man back, and limped toward the exit, dragging his bad leg like dead weight. Scarneck swung at him, missed, and then both men turned on me, their faces twisted with rage. I stopped honking. Silence rushed in, thick and terrifying. Scarneck walked toward my car. I pressed the lock button again like that would help, and my fingers shook so badly I nearly dropped the keys. He bent down to my window, close enough I could see the pores in his skin. "You just made this personal," he said softly, and then he tapped my glass with one finger like a promise, and turned to follow the limping man into the snow. I sat there, frozen, coffee scent and fear filling my car, and I realized my last $10 hadn't bought a stranger a meal. It had bought me a place in someone else's war. I drove out of the garage so fast my tires skidded on the slush, and the city lights smeared in my wet eyes. My hands were locked at 10 and 2, knuckles white. Like if I loosened my grip, the whole world would fall apart. On the way home to my tiny apartment in Bridgeport, I kept checking my rearview mirror. Every pair of headlights felt like threat. Every dark SUV made my stomach clench. At a red light, my phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Tasha. "You alive? I saw your snap earlier. You looked dead on your feet." I didn't reply. My thumb hovered, then dropped. What was I supposed to say? Almost got jumped in a garage, and the homeless guy I tried to feed might be hunted. By the time I got home, my body finally let the adrenaline go, and I started shaking so hard I could barely unlock my door. Inside, the apartment smelled like laundry detergent and the cheap candle I always lit to pretend I had my life together. I kicked off my shoes and slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor. I'm a nurse. I've held pressure on arterial bleeds. I've told families their person isn't coming back. I'm supposed to be steady. But that night, my breath kept catching like I was swallowing ice. In the morning, I called the non-emergency line. I told them what happened. Parking garage, 2 men, Tire Iron threats. The officer sounded bored. "Did they touch you?" "No." "Did you get a license plate?" "No." "Then there's not much we can do," he said, and I heard the faint clack of a keyboard like my fear was just another form to close. After that, I tried to bury it under routine. Work, sleep, repeat. Except it wouldn't stay buried. Every time the automatic doors whooshed open at Mercy General, I flinched. Every time someone walked too close behind me, my scalp tightened with panic. My coworkers noticed. "You okay, girl?" Dr. Patel asked one afternoon as we stalked the crash cart. "Yeah, I lied, just tired." 2 days later, on my lunch break, I stepped outside into the brittle winter sun and saw him. He was across the street from the hospital, sitting on a low brick wall near the bus stop. Same ragged coat, same limp, but his beard looked cleaner, like someone had given him a chance at a sink. His face was still bruised. He held a coffee cup in both hands like it was sacred warmth. My heart jumped into my throat. I crossed the street before I could second-guess myself. "Hey," I said, voice low. "Are you okay?" His head lifted slowly, and when his eyes met mine, something inside me shifted. Recognition, not his, mine. Like I'd seen those eyes in a photograph I couldn't quite place. "You're the nurse," he said. "Yeah, and you disappeared, I thought." I had to move, he cut in. His gaze flicked past me, scanning, always scanning. "They don't stop. Who are they?" I asked. His mouth tightened. He looked like he was fighting whether to tell me anything. Then he said, "Do you remember a boy named Illy?" The name hit me so hard I actually stepped back. Illy, a sound from my childhood, a shadow at the edge of my earliest memories. My throat closed. "Why are you asking me that?" His eyes filled, but he blinked it away fast, like tears were dangerous. "Because," he whispered, "I've been trying to find you since I was 10 years old." My stomach turned. "That's not possible." He reached into the inside pocket of his coat with a slow, careful motion like he didn't want to scare me. He pulled out a small object wrapped in a dirty cloth. When he unwrapped it, my breath left my body. A cheap plastic bracelet, faded pink, with tiny beads that spelled a name in crooked white letters. Maddie. My name. I hadn't seen that bracelet in decades. I made it at summer camp when I was little, the year my mom couldn't afford childcare and sent me to a church program on the south side. My knees went weak. I gripped the brick wall behind me. "How do you have that?" I whispered. His voice cracked. "You gave it to me." My mind flashed disjointed images. A playground, a crying boy with scraped knees, a counselor yelling, the smell of sunblock and hot concrete. I stared at him, this freezing, hunted man, and my heart tried to fit him into the shape of that memory. He leaned forward, eyes shining now. "You were the first person who ever," he swallowed, "who ever treated me like I mattered." Behind us, a bus hissed to a stop. People moved around us like water around stones, and in the middle of all that normal noise, he said the words that made the air feel suddenly too thin to breathe. "My name is Illy." We couldn't stay outside, not with his eyes darting like prey, not with my hands still trembling. I brought him into the hospital cafeteria through the side entrance, the one employees used, praying nobody would stop us. He hesitated at the doors, shoulders hunching as if he expected someone to shove him out. "It's okay," I said softly. "You're with me." He followed, limping, the smell of cold clinging to him. In the cafeteria's warmth, his shaking eased a fraction, but his face stayed tight, braced for impact. I bought him soup and a roll with the little bit of money I had left until payday, and we sat in a back corner where the TV murmured over nobody listening. For a minute, he just stared at the steam rising from the bowl like he'd forgotten heat could be gentle. Then he ate like someone who didn't trust the food to stay. I watched him and felt something split open inside me. I'd always been the one with the steady job, the degree, the clean apartment. The together one. But sitting across from him, I realized how thin that line was. How close any of us were to being swallowed. He wiped his mouth with his sleeve and finally looked at me fully. "You don't remember," he said, not accusing, just sad. "I remember pieces," I admitted. "A church camp, a boy crying, a fight." He flinched at the word fight. "It was a foster home," he said. "Not camp. They sent me to that church program because I was difficult." I hated myself for the way my brain tried to translate difficult into bad. He saw it anyway, and his jaw clenched. "I was a kid who wouldn't shut up about wanting my mom," he said. "That's all." The cafeteria lights made the lines in his face clearer. He wasn't old, not really. Maybe early 40s, but life had carved him like it wanted him to look defeated. He continued, voice low. "That day, one of the older boys took my shoes. Said I didn't deserve them. I chased him. I got pushed down by the dumpsters. Everybody laughed." My chest tightened. "You didn't laugh," he said. "You came over and sat next to me on the ground like it wasn't dirty. You handed me your bracelet and you said, if you wear this, you'll have a friend, even when I'm not here." Tears burned behind my eyes. I pressed my thumb hard into my palm to keep myself from breaking. "I was 8, I whispered, stunned at the courage of that little girl I barely remembered being. He nodded. "Then the counselor pulled you away. And later that week, the foster dad came. He saw the bracelet. He got mad, said I stole it." Illy's hands curled around the soup spoon until his knuckles went pale. "He beat me for it," he said simply. "And after that, they moved me, new house, new school, same story." My stomach turned with nausea, with rage, with the helplessness that always comes too late. "I'm sorry," I said, and it felt too small, like dropping a penny into a canyon. Illy shook his head, eyes glassy. "I didn't keep it to blame you. I kept it because it proved I wasn't crazy, that somebody saw me once. I couldn't look away. But why now? Why are those men after you?" His gaze slid toward the window. Outside, the street looked ordinary. Cars, pedestrians, a city pretending it wasn't full of teeth. "I did work," he said. "Day labor, warehouse, anything. Couple years ago, I got a job sweeping floors at a storage facility in Cicero. One night, I heard voices behind a unit, men talking about moving pills, guns. My throat went cold. I saw Scarneck," he said. "Same scar, same eyes. He caught me listening. They beat me, took my phone, told me if I ever talked, I'd be dead." "Why didn't you go to the police?" I asked. He laughed once, bitter. "You ever tried telling the police something when you don't have an address, when you smell like the street? They look at you like you're lying before you open your mouth." I didn't argue because I'd seen that look on people's faces. Even in the ER, Illy's voice dropped. "But I kept one thing, a key card they dropped. It had a unit number written on it. I figured if I could get proof, maybe I could trade it for safety." "And that's what they want," I said. He nodded. "And I've been trying to find you because you're the only person I ever trusted. I don't have anybody else." My eyes stung. My chest felt too full. Outside the cafeteria window, I saw a dark hoodie pause near the entrance across the street. The man didn't come in. He just stood there looking. Till he saw my face change, and his hand shot out, gripping my wrist. "They found me," he whispered. My whole body went cold, like the cafeteria's warmth had been a lie. I stood so fast my chair scraped and heads turned. Illy kept hold of my wrist, his grip trembling but firm. "Don't run like you're guilty," he murmured. "Just act normal." Normal. I nodded like I understood what normal meant when someone was hunting you. We moved through the hospital corridor, past nurses' stations and posters about flu shots, the ordinary world brushing against the edge of something violent. I led him toward an empty consult room near the old wing, where the walls were scuffed and the overhead light buzzed faintly. Inside, I locked the door and pressed my ear to it. Footsteps passed, then faded. Illy sagged into a chair, breathing hard. "You shouldn't be in this," he said. "I already am," I answered, and surprised myself with how steady it sounded. I pulled out my phone and called Tasha. She picked up on the second ring. "Maddie, you okay?" "Tasha," I said, voice shaking now that I'd committed. "I need a favor, not a small one. What's going on?" I looked at Illy, at the bruises and the exhaustion and the stubborn, terrified hope in his eyes. "I have someone here, a man, he's in danger, and I think it's real." Tasha didn't joke, her tone sharpened. "Are you safe?" "Not sure," I admitted. "But I need help." Tasha exhaled slowly. "Okay, tell me where you are." While she drove, I did the other call I'd avoided because I didn't want to be disappointed again. I asked for a supervisor this time, and I didn't let my voice go small. "I'm an RN at Mercy General," I said. "I witnessed two men threatening someone with a tire iron. One of them has a distinctive scar on his neck. They're connected to a storage facility in Cicero, and there may be narcotics and weapons involved. I have a witness with information and a physical lead." Silence, then a different kind of attention. Paper shuffling. A question that sounded like it mattered. "Stay where you are," the supervisor said. "Do not confront anyone. Officers are being dispatched." I hung up and stared at my hands. They were still shaking. I didn't feel brave. I felt like a child again, about to be told I'd done something wrong. Illy watched me, his expression pained. "They'll blame you for this," he said. "People always pay for helping me." "That's not true," I said, but my voice wavered because part of me feared he might be right. He swallowed hard. "After that foster home, I spent my whole life thinking if I just found you, maybe the world wasn't all teeth. Stupid, right?" "It's not stupid," I whispered. "It's human." He looked down at the faded bracelet in his palm. His shoulders shook once like a sob he refused to let out. "I kept looking," he said. "Libraries, shelters, old church records. Sometimes I thought I imagined you. Then I saw your badge in the garage that night, Maddie, Mercy General, and I thought maybe I get one good thing before I die." My eyes burned. "You're not dying," I said too fiercely. "Not if I can help it." A knock hit the door. Illy's head snapped up, panic flashing. He grabbed the edge of the table like he might flip it, like he might fight anyway. I pressed my palm against the door and called, "Who is it?" "Tasha." It came her voice tight. "Open up." Relief made my knees weak. I opened the door and Tasha stepped inside, a black woman in her 30s with a puffy winter coat and eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at Illy and her face softened, then hardened again with purpose. "You're the guy," she said quietly. "The one my girl spent her last money on." Illy flinched, shame rising. I didn't ask. Tasha held up a hand. Don't sit. We're going to do this right. She pulled a folder from her bag. I work billing. I know how systems work, she said to me, and I know a lawyer at my church who owes me a favor. Illy stared at her like she'd spoken another language. I leaned closer to him. You're not alone, I said. Not anymore. When the police arrived, it wasn't a miracle. It was paperwork, statements, a long night, and a fear that kept trying to claw back into my throat. But this time, I didn't let myself shrink. Illy handed over the key card, the unit number, the details he'd held like a bomb in his pocket. The officers listened, really listened. Weeks later, after arrests and news reports and court dates I attended on my days off, Illy stood outside the courthouse in a borrowed coat, blinking at the winter sun like he'd forgotten it could be gentle too. He turned to me, eyes wet. You did what you promised, he said. You came back. I swallowed around the lump in my throat. So did you. He smiled then, small and real, and for the first time I saw the boy he'd been, still alive behind all the scars. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories.